All right, it's 6 o'clock. I see Dr. Green is here. Hello. And the others are on as well. There's Robert. And Paula, are you joining us by phone?
Paula, we can't hear you if you're trying to talk.
She is self-muted. Okay, now it seems maybe she's not here. So maybe she's hanging up and trying again, something else.
Okay, yeah, we can wait another minute or two for that.
Okay, now she's back on. Hi, Paula. We see you're retrying to get on. Was there anything special you guys had to do, Brian or Robert, to be heard and seen? No.
No, but it's different from the computer than the phone. It's not. When GoToMeeting wasn't working for me, it was hard.
Yeah.
Karen, I'm looking for the agenda that you sent out just so I can have it in front of me, but.
Oh.
Was it sent by you?
It was sent by Lucy, probably. Lucy Barrows.
Barrows, okay.
Yeah.
I think I already saw the minutes available.
I got it.
Yep.
Yeah, I have the minutes. I don't have an agenda though.
Yeah, I didn't get the agenda either.
Okay. Do you want me to just tell you the agenda items, or I could probably share it if you give me a minute?
Sure. Yeah, that tastes fine.
Want me to just tell you what they are? Pretty standard. So the meeting call to order is first, and then we're going to approve the minutes of the 18th. And then COVID updates, Health and Human Services update, department updates.
Okay, I'm in it.
Oh,
Can you guys
hi,
hear me?
Great. Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you.
I
Yeah.
was trying to do the video, it wasn't working out, so I'm back on audio.
Okay, great. And then 5 was Narcan updates, and then 6 was the next meeting and adjourn.
Okay.
All right.
All right, well, the gang's all here, so 6:04, call the meeting to order.
I second it.
The next issue is approval of the minutes. I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second it.
Oh, actually, before we do that, we should do, I know gang's all here, but we should do a roll call. So I'm Brian Green.
Paul Machado.
Robert Sixia.
All right. So all in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
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 All right. COVID updates.
COVID updates, fortunately, there aren't a lot other than the approval of the new vaccine, which I'm sure you're all aware of. We've done some education and outreach messaging through our communications department with the city. And we are in the process of setting up some fall clinics and schedules where hopefully we will be able to offer flu and the COVID vaccine. So we're looking to partner with CHA initially at the school clinic so that we can provide a range of vaccines all in one stop. And and have their support, because we do not yet have our new nurse that we have hired on board. So we're still at 1.5 EFT, and that's for all public health nursing duties. So Liz Kelman really is not able to do clinics full time. So we're hoping that with the arrival of our newest public health nurse, who has been offered the position, accepted, and is going through the credentialing clearance process right now, I think she's going to be a fantastic fit for the city and for the team that we have, and it will significantly expand our ability and capacity to offer some clinics and whatever else public health functions we need. So that's exciting. I think that's the main update.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Next, I believe, is the Health and Human Services Department updates.
Great. So again, there's so many, but I'm going to go through a few highlights that I think are important for you guys to know about. And then if there are other things that you'd like me to talk about or that I missed, feel free to ask. So kind of starting with the department itself and our organization and reorganization with the new positions that were funded during the budget process this year. There were some really exciting roles that were funded, and I'll just give you a quick update. The Public Health Deputy Director position, which is sort of counter position to the Health and Human Services Deputy Director, Nancy Bacci. It's a way to divide up the division and support the teams and increase our capacity. So that position has been interviewed and an offer has been made, I believe. So it's in the very final stages of hiring there, and we're hopeful that that will work out with the preferred candidate. We had some excellent candidates, so that was great. And then there's the public health nurse position, which I mentioned. They are due to start on the 26th, I think, of September, providing all the credentialing paperwork has come through by then. We have the LGBTQ plus coordinator position that was increased from half-time to full-time. We had lots of applicants for that, and Nancy and her team will be going through and starting that process shortly as well. We had an activity director resign over the summer, and I think that we are almost finished interviewing and hiring and recommending someone for that role. Unfortunately, the social worker positions are still vacant. We've had a couple of applicants and then things fall apart. So mental health, as we know, continues to be a significant struggle for the city to hire, our partner agencies to hire. It's just the way it is everywhere right now. But we will continue trying. The Veterans Department has 2 ARPA-funded positions, and I believe one has been hired, offered, and will be starting at the end of the month. So those are to assist veterans with benefits and getting enrolled in services and a project coordinator. So we're excited about those. And then the shared services grant position that's been empty for a year, we're the host, but due to the director leaving and myself coming on board and that gap, the position stayed vacant as well. So we're very excited that, again, the interview process is complete and we have a chosen candidate who the HR is in the process of offering to. So when we meet again, we should have some new names and faces for you to meet. Exciting, and we're really happy to have the team, all of these positions filled out so we can get on with the work. As you know, it takes a lot of time and energy from not only our team, but then our colleagues and friends in HR as well. So the other thing that's happening soon is the community needs assessment is almost complete. By Cambridge Health Alliance completes it for Somerville and our area towns. That's done every 2 or 3 years, depending on the network, and I'm not sure how frequently they do it. I can't remember, but that's exciting. It's an opportunity for us to meet with CHA, gather some data that they have been busy collecting, look at some of the health needs in the community, and then say, okay, what else do we also need to know to complete this picture for the city of Somerville and some of our regional grants, things like that. So we are waiting. In fact, I got an invite today for some sort of meeting where that will be shared with us. So I'm excited about that. There's also a capacity study that you may have heard. The state is embarking on a public health, local boards of health capacity assessment. And the first step is for health departments to basically report to the state all of the work we're doing, all the positions we have, all of the core regulatory responsibilities that we are meeting or not meeting, because there are many health departments in the state that are unable to meet all of the requirements from the Department of Public Health. So we need to complete that in the next couple of weeks. And then the state is going to compile the data from the entire state and really look at where some gaps are, and they are committed to helping fund and resource and fill those gaps. So much of our capacity assessment will be done by ISD because so many of our regulatory functions are handled through Nick and his team, but they've been great. They're aware that the assessment is coming, and we'll work with them to get that completed. And then simultaneously, the team started some work. We had a workshop on Monday, the leadership team of HHS, to begin setting our own goals for the division. And again, those will circle back when we have a draft. I would like to share it with all of the board and get your input. We kind of took some of the existing goals, some of the budget goals that were set, some of the mayor's goals, the bureau goals, and put them together with the help of Somerstat. So Somerstat has been fantastic, and they're creating a database for us to work from and also helping us to really get at the work we're doing, how we're measuring it, how we'll know when we've been successful or not, how to tweak it. So that's exciting. I think it'll be a lot of work initially, but the team was great and very engaged. And then the Safe Consumption Site project, as you know, the feasibility study came out this summer. We've had a lot of interest and support in the community, a lot of questions. The mayor's office has been responding to a lot of that. They've also asked HHS to continue to take a lead role in trying to take the feasibility study and figure out what next steps are. So we are excited to support the mayor's office and the work that's been done by the advisory committee and many folks in the community leading up to this. And so at this point, the next step is a process of a rather tedious process of taking the feasibility study and meeting with, pulling together all of many directors within the city who need to give input into the nuts and bolts logistical stuff around parking spots, loss of revenue, electricity, water, sewer, plowing, pedestrian flow, all of these things that are beyond my wheelhouse and really need several experts. So we had the first meeting of this group, which was very well attended by probably 10 or so directors from the city. And they are now kind of looking at some of the proposals on the feasibility in the feasibility study to help the city figure out the logistics. So that is the process, and they have a bit of time to review and get their feedback to me and the mayor and whoever else is gonna try to figure out these next steps. So that's where we're up to. As I said, we've had a lot of interest and a lot of folks concerned and wanna know how it's going, how they can help, what's happening next. So just to be clear that that is moving along. The other significant project that HHS has been asked to assist with, and we are now the city sponsor for an ARPA proposal from the Somerville Homeless Coalition. And that just means that we're the city contact for the Somerville Homeless Coalition to try to bridge the gap between all of the pieces in ARPA and the staff and the processes of the city and the Homeless Coalition and their team. So they had proposed a much needed community engagement center to be somewhere in Somerville that is accessible for persons experiencing homelessness during the daytime hours for basic needs, hopefully for wraparound services. And the idea is, depending on the space that's available, there would be social workers, there would be some mental health support, there would be other social determinant screening and referrals to things like housing and food. There may even be a capacity for showering basic hygiene, maybe laundry. So this is the need that has become very clear through COVID and just through, our community being here in our community, that we are all working hard to figure out and address. So we've had some great meetings with the ARPA team, with the Somerville Homeless Coalition, who has done a ton of work of thinking outside the box around how maybe a fixed modular unit might be applicable until a permanent brick and mortar site can be found in Somerville, which is really, really challenging, as I'm sure you guys know. So today we went over to Tufts and had a look at the modular units that they're utilizing for student housing. They have a couple of different models there, one that was custom built, one that was off the shelf. There's advantages to either, but it kind of broadened their minds to what is possible with these modular units. So that was exciting, and they are working through the next steps of their proposal and how they might want to handle this, where they might locate it, that kind of thing. But I just wanted you to be aware of the project and know that HHS is supporting this project and spending quite a bit of time trying to help it through, because we are, of course, responsible for all protecting health and human safety. Given the heat this summer, it was a real concern. That's not going to get any better, and the cold snaps are just around the corner. So we really want to think about this most vulnerable population and how we can make sure there's something in place temporarily and then permanently is the goal. Okay, so I've talked a lot. Those were the main things I really wanted to highlight for you, but I'm happy to talk about other things or answer questions or whatever.
The first, just a plug, since we were talking about homeless people in Somerville and Somerville Homeless Coalition, there is a free exhibit going on at the Armory right now about Evicted, and for anybody who's listening to this, it's worth your time. So anyway, just a quick plug. Thank you for all the updates. I think a lot going on. I have a couple things that are off topic, but I'll let I'll have Robert and Paula if they have anything for this.
Yeah, I think Karen acknowledging that, like, you're still only a few months in, and there's a lot on your plate. Staffing, getting a sense of capacity, then implementing priorities, and then maybe priorities that your team is trying to implement as well. Would love to kind of hear your initial thoughts on coming. I think it was Gloucester, right? So coming from Gloucester and seeing that health department and their priorities, resources, allocation. I know that you're coming in. Just would love to hear your sense of kind of where the health department sits right now. Is it now with these staffings coming up, is it looking like the team is going to be resourced enough to hit some of these necessary priorities and go above that? Or are we still kind of government agencies can kind of be understaffed, overworked? Just kind of get a sense of what your thinking off the cuff is of the department right now.
That's a great question. My thinking is, first of all, I'm astounded by the team. I continue to be so impressed by the core team in HHS, the folks that have been here a while, the newer folks. They're really hardworking, really thoughtful. And Somerville is kind of unique in that it attracts people like that in many departments, and the board, of course, too. So, and our partner agencies, there's a real dedication, there's a real commitment to being first, to taking chances and doing things, being out in front, being a leader in our regional work, our shared service work, our harm reduction work. So, I could go on for a long time answering that question, but I won't. I think what I will say is that the challenge will be where to pull back. And unlike other municipalities where sometimes you have to convince people, boards, stakeholders, counselors, community, that it's important to do this work, that we need to invest in it. That's not the issue here. There is a lot of enthusiasm. The council has great questions and initiatives and ideas for me all the time. And I love that. I think the challenge for us as a small department that is seriously constrained by physical space, that's my clause here, is, you know, we can keep asking for programs and things, and I think our team can handle so much, and they have fantastic ideas. But there's two parts of that. One is, are we always the right person to do the work? And we don't need to be. There are people that are working in the space like the Homeless Coalition. They are the people that should be running an engagement center that closely. Now, would I love to have some staff from our department who are embedded there, or who spend time there, or who are budgeted to be liaisons for that center? Of course. And that would, you know, these are the kinds of things I like to think about is, you know, are there grants that maybe we can hire some community health workers who would be on our team, part of a team, maybe even part of the regional health departments, but they would be based and embedded and doing the work with some of our partners in the community. So again, I think we're still at that stage of figuring out the needs, and that's where hopefully this needs assessment will be really helpful to us. Figuring out the gaps, and that's, you know, kind of, that's, you know them, I think you guys, a lot of folks know them, I'm starting to see them. And then where can we partner or fill the gap? So does HHS need to take some piece of that and run with it? Or are we better off working with a partner who is better poised to deal with the issue? So that's the balance I think we have to, and that's the challenge of like almost holding back a little to say, how's the best way to fill this gap? So that's a long answer to your question, but I think the health department, the board, the city administration is well poised to be really expanding access to healthcare in a variety of ways. And some of that will be done by our department and growth of our department, but some of it will be with strong partnerships and supporting our local agencies, our housing authorities, our senior coalitions, our, you know, all of the partners within the community. So was there something more specific that you were interested in?
No, I think it answers it. I think, you know, there's a lot happening right now. You know, I think you are touching upon a point that I think we've encountered a few times on the board where, you know, I think sometimes we kind of seem to be the default for a lot of issues that may have a health component, but may not necessarily be the most appropriate for the board. You know, Brian, I think of like,
Right.
you know, some of like the zoning things that happened with like Union Square and the station there that for some reason were kicked over to us. You know, and yeah, other topics that may be best handled by not only within other city departments, yeah, other partners outside the city. So no, it's great to hear that you have that that view. And I think, yeah, I think as you continue to get more comfort and familiar, and you know, I'd be curious on the capacity assessment as that kind of comes forward, because it's good for the board to know, yeah, gaps and priorities and all of that. So, and you know, glad to hear that the Chana is, you know, near finalized. You know, it's been delayed for a little bit, but yeah, happy to hear that. So what do you think, by the end of the calendar year or next year, there'll be a draft kind of ready to review and go over?
Oh, yes, by the calendar year for sure, probably even sooner. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then just talking through that process, the next, like, how long do you think the planning phase is going to be from there?
So tell me what you're talking about specifically.
So and like, you can check me if I'm off base. It's the assessment, the Chana, followed by the plan, and then followed by the implementation. And then it all repeats itself, right? So if the Chana is finishing now, just wanted to get a sense of like the timeline on, so what's the planning stage looking like?
I mean, ideally you would do them in that order, right? But we just had budget cycle and we're given some goals, some priorities, some new initiatives, some new positions. and then there's this ongoing work, and then COVID hits, or monkeypox, and we're pivoting for something that we didn't anticipate. So the process, it's a good question, and there's kind of two processes. There's the state's capacity assessment, where they are doing their thing. That will be slow. That will be, probably we're supposed to get back to them by sometime in October, each department reporting, then they're going to analyze it, and then they're going to start probably next year in FY23. I don't know if it'll be February, it'll be May, working with towns around what gaps they see, and maybe grant RFPs might start to come out, is how I imagine that would go, to with an encouragement of looking regionally to fill gaps. So, they may help identify 4 or 5 communities that don't have a public health nurse function or something, and then try to find ways to partner and support that. So that's kind of one process. And then I think you were also talking about the Cambridge Health assessment, which is a more traditional hospital health needs assessment, where we get piles of data. And that is coming out in the next few weeks, is what they've said. I'm on their community advisory board. They have a draft. I think it's now been approved by their board, and they want to share it with the communities in the next few weeks. And then that's where, again, we don't have we don't have people that can do a complete needs assessment for us, but we do have lots of resources like Somerset. And again, depending on how comprehensive. So this year, their needs assessment has had a big focus on social determinants of health. And that's kind of been the shift of a lot of our hospital groups to really pay attention to that. And then they want to start meeting with us to talk about what that means and how we can work towards that goal together. So we don't know, exactly how broad their assessment's going to be. I think it will also have the traditional kind of chronic disease, hospital admissions, those sorts of things as well. We've been looking at some of the preventable diseases, that data, as we go with each one of these departments and issues, we're kind of having a look at whatever data is available to us. But that's definitely something that has been identified for DPH as a real need of local public health. We just don't have a team to comb through all the data that's there. And then there are really key pieces of data we can't get that only they can get, like insurance data, hospitalization data, 911 type of data. I mean, you can get it from your local dispatch, but it's often coded different. Most municipal dispatchers don't have a really good way of consistently coding and capturing that data and then sharing it in real time. So I was on a meeting with the cities, some of the larger cities of Massachusetts. There is a meeting, there's a committee that's formed of health directors from large cities with DPH, and that was sort of the number one thing that we all pushed and said, we need your help with this. I mean, you have the EPIs, you have the data, you need to help us. So we're not 350 health directors who are trying to run the day-to-day operations, also be combing through and doing a really comprehensive needs assessment. So I don't know, to be honest, how much detail and how much we'll be able to supplement the needs assessment we get, or how much we'll feel we need to. We may.
And I think, and Brian, you might need to check me here, and Paula too. I think so, right, there's the capacity assessment that's going on, and that's your internal review, sent to DPH, see if they can help supplement some resources. And then there's the Cambridge Health Alliance, community health needs assessment, community benefits, planning implementation. I thought on that community benefits assessment, planning implementation, that while Somerville as a city has there's no obligation to do it, I thought historically Somerville has done, has kind of hooked itself onto Cambridge Health Alliances, and then, worked on the planning and the implementation. Brian, am I getting that right? Where
we definitely collaborated with their project to host community meetings where they asked us to help set up community meetings that we sponsored. And then when we were listening to the community, it was sort of a hybrid public health meeting and needs assessment. That was maybe
like 2017, right?
Yeah, it feels like it was like 5 or more years ago now.
Okay, so that should, I mean, typically that is done as part of the needs assessment. They do key stakeholder interviews, and they would want to talk to the board in the municipality, would want to talk to the mayor's office, city councilors, and then other folks in the community, and they do usually ask our help getting people together. So with COVID, I don't know what they did for that. I have kind of come in late to the process. I think they did have an online survey that went out, and I don't know how much of that they were able to do, those stakeholder meetings.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then their implementation plan usually does segue into this regional community advisory board agrees on a couple of priorities and sets some goals, and then usually the grants they award, there's some small community grants that get awarded annually through this, and they're usually connected to the goals identified in the needs assessment. So you are correct that they will be guiding a process, but having not gone through it with them, I don't know for sure. But then, and then they kind of annually want to check back, how did they do on their goals, and do that for a couple of years till it's time for the new needs assessment.
Gotcha. Okay, no, that's helpful to hear. Yeah, I think I only had maybe like an additional question on the safe consumption, but didn't want to jump over there if Brian or Paula had other thoughts on that. And just on the safe consumption, it's been a minute, as they say, since I think we've had a briefing on it. It's probably been, I think, pre-COVID. So Karen, would just, I don't know if you can give us like a quick kind of catch up on that. I recall that when Doug briefed us, there were obviously, I think, like pretty considerable legal like hurdles. And I'm thinking of this being a safe injection site. Is this something else, safe consumption? Or is this the same thing? And I'll let you kind of take over. So, yeah.
Yeah, sure. So the feasibility study came out that was done by Fenway, and it is called a safe consumption site. It may also be called in some places safe injection site. I think that was probably the original name when these were first set up. So the feasibility study that Fenway put together is modeled largely after a site in New York City that the team went and saw. And this is, again, I believe the advisory committee went, and maybe some city officials, I'm not really sure. I know Matt from our prevention team went. And embedded within the feasibility study is a very beautiful video that I think gives you a really clear picture. You actually, you go in the video, you go inside, you see the staff kind of talk to you, explain it. And you get a real sense from this mini video that's within the report that I will resend to you of what this thing is, what it isn't, and just the human nature of just the humanness of the folks in the facility who are seeking help, who are seeking harm reduction services, and who are active users. So, and then this man, I think his name is Carl, who is the person that runs the New York site. Can't remember his full name. He's the main person in the film who explains, gives a nice overview. So, I mean, there could be people smoking their preferred substance. They could be injecting. So, that's, I think, probably why the terminology has changed to a safe consumption site. And in terms of like the legality, I think it's still complicated. And I think that's why in their feasibility study, they recommended that it be on city property versus private property in case these, the sort of legal issues bubble up between the feds and.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know that whole side of it. I just know that the the feasibility study came to that conclusion and the city seems to agree that it's going to be much, a much less risky legally thing to consider and explore if it's on city property.
Okay.
So that's kind of where that got to. In New York, the property is not city-owned property. It was a building. It is a building that was donated by a private funder, and it allowed them to offer at least two floors, maybe four. Matt can correct me, of services. And that's the gold standard. You know, you want to have your safe consumption site, you want to have wraparound services there and a mini engagement center where there are lots of other services to support people and whatever needs they have. And then ideally you want to have further treatment. I think that the New York model or one model maybe in Canada has an inpatient treatment for people who are ready to not use and go to a medication-assisted therapy. And that's, you know, they don't just go from one floor to the other, but the whole facility it's all co-located together. And there are a range of services to support people. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know a whole lot more about the legal.
No, I think it's helpful. I think it's always good to discuss one. I think terminology is always important. Yeah. You know, that it is broader than, you know, just injections. And further, yeah, I think hearing more and I think having, you know, information for us to view, if, you know, that's demonstrable would be fantastic, you know, getting a link to that. And just to recap, so in Somerville, the feasibility study has concluded or is like still in process? It has concluded.
It has concluded. The feasibility study, so a needs assessment was done first, and that was probably a year or so ago. And then the city funded a feasibility study based on the needs assessment. And that was finalized this summer, I think, and released.
So is it feasible? Is that the takeaway?
Yeah, I think it's feasible. You know, according to the report, it's physically feasible. You know, there aren't a lot of requirements for the building, and I think where it gets more feasible is to have it as a temporary, initially, kind of like the engagement center, a modular type of building that can happen more quickly and can, again, use city-owned space. They did a review of all city buildings, and I just don't think there was anything in that category that was feasible within the city. Space is really, really hard, and there's so many constraints on space. So I think the gist of the report is that the modular option as a short-term solution is the more feasible option, and that there were a few proposed city-owned sites within Somerville that should be considered that could work. So again, that's part of what this working group is now doing, is really getting into that nitty-gritty of all those things I mentioned, as well as something like the smoking room. You know, someone looked at the plan and said, why is there a smoking room in here? Smoking is banned. And yes, it is. This is, again, a special category and so we need to figure that out. We need to hopefully make sure that it's not in violation of the workplace and that other employees were not in there. So again, we'll look to New York and other places how they handled this, but these are some of the nitty-gritty stuff that has to get figured out.
Okay, great. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, and I will send you the report. It's not a huge document, and it kind of gives a couple of options. It gives a couple of sites options, and then it gives the size options. And they're pretty small, what's proposed initially. They are small sites that would take up, in the proposal, one is 3 car bays or parking spaces. And the size roughly of 3 parking spaces, and then the slightly larger one is 4 parking spaces. So if you think about that, it's not huge what is initially proposed. That's not to say that the city could do something bigger or smaller, but they feel that you can get the really core services into something that small initially, including a bit of a community engagement space where other services would be available to people, which I think is really important. So I'm pushing hard for the slightly bigger one, if at all possible. But having said that, it is not going to be everything that we need or want. So we have to look at these other supplemental services. We have to look at our harm reduction services, our needle exchange, those kinds of things in the community. And we are doing that simultaneously. I think there was a contract, and then through COVID, it kind of, became impossible, but we're exploring and getting that back on track with our providers as well. So we definitely need all of it.
Yeah. Well, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up, so that was one of the things that the tangential things. So thank you, Robert. There's been, I think, in the news more discussion about safe consumption site too. There's, I think the mayor's office in Boston has also been talking this up. So I think there's regional interest. And then the other thing that I think was in the news recently is there's a municipality further west in Massachusetts, and I can't remember which one. Oh, you all froze. Am I still there? Maybe.
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right. Maybe we lost Karen, but we'll see. There was a municipality further out west that had boil water after flooding because there's been a lot of water flooding, heavy rains, and as the climate does get more unstable, there's going to be more heavy flooding. And I've been in Somerville when we've had a boil water order for flooding in the past, and I believe the municipality we were talking about was in the Quabbane Reservoir watershed. So it's always puzzling to me when, like, this town over here needs to boil water and this town over here doesn't, if it's coming from the same reservoir. So I don't have any particular questions about that other than I feel like when I was listening to this news, oh, we really did this, Karen.
Brett, you're on a great roll too, and then, yeah, might have to wait a second for Karen to join. No, I hear you. Yeah, it's.
Anyway, Robert, so you can. I don't know if you remember this, but I remember getting a notification about boiling water as the Board of Health chair on a bright, sunny day about a decade ago on my phone. But I think we've reached a point where now we can reverse 911 and call the city and announce stuff like that. And I just don't know whether we have a system in place to do that.
Right. Yeah, no, I think great question.
Karen just sent me a text saying she's trying to reboot.
Okay. All right.
So this is the intermission portion, the Board of Health meeting.
We can wait a bit.
You got completely kicked out.
Yeah, she froze and then she fell out.
Still trying.
Yeah, she sent me a message saying she's trying to reboot, and I just said we're waiting, no worries.
Yeah, I don't think I think it's mostly just us today. So well-attended meeting tonight.
Okay, she says I seem to have lost my internet. So
Okay.
she says she doesn't have any other updates other than that we have been approved for the free Narcan program. So I think I can go on record and say that Somerville has been approved for the free Narcan program.
All right.
Good.
Next meeting, are you guys okay with meeting in October?
Yeah.
Yes.
On the third Thursday at 6 o'clock?
20th, I believe, just to get that in. Okay.
What is it?
Third Thursday would be the 20th, yeah.
All right, sounds good. I second it.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's good with me. I'll put it on my calendar now. All right.
Well, I guess in the past we've taken a vote and approved the director's reports. I don't know if we need to do that, but might as well. I make a motion to approve the director's reports.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
And I guess I'll adjourn the meeting. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:46.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, guys.
Did somebody second?
I second it.
All right, excellent.
All right.
Lucy, I don't know if you need, all right.
All right. Till
All
next
right.
time.
Take care. All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers.